Welcome back, APUSH students. Today is Chapter 11 of the American Pageant, titled The Triumphs and Travails of the American Republic. If you don't know the American Pageant, it's fine because the content is still going to be the same. I'm going to be going over all the key terms and notes for this chapter that helped me get a 5, so I encourage you to take notes along as well. First is the Federalist Party supported strong centralized government. They were in power to start the new government and made a lot of the policies that helped make the United States an economic power. So a lot of the Hamiltonian ideas, like the national bank per se, helped America really centralize economic policy and turn around the monetary problem that plagued them during the beginnings of the United States. The Democratic Republican Party opposed centralization from the Federalists. They helped to promote the agrarian society and advocated for the people's rights, like the Bill of Rights, their major accomplishment in the Constitution. They checked and balanced some of the more controlling policies of the Federalists, and overall tried their best to protect American citizens and their rights. Revolution of 1800, when the Democratic Republicans took power, it was the beginning of the end for the Federalist Party and helped to restore virtue and limit the expansion of centralized government power. So when the Federalists got the Constitution signed, really pushed for more and more power, and then you had like the Alien Sedition Acts, things like that really hurt the Federalists, and this is where they're finally taken out of power. Judiciary Act of 1801, Federalists passed law that created 16 new judges. The Democratic Republicans argue that the Federalists were packing the court with anti-Jeffersonians right before they lost power, which of course was true. Midnight judges, these were the judges that were appointed right before John Adams left office and the Democratic Republicans took over. The midnight judges were anti-Jeffersonian, which established Federalist rule in the judicial branch. Supreme Court justices don't have term limits, they serve forever. So this was the last push for the Federalists to just keep their power before, of course, they lost it. Marbury versus Madison, conflict about who decides constitutionality. This was over the Judge Act with the midnight judges. It established the precedent that the judicial branch has the final say in whether something is constitutional. Judicial review, courts decide constitutionality. The power of the Constitution was given to the courts. Supreme Court was given a lot of power in this case. Basically, they now have the power to decide whether laws passed by the executive or the legislative branch are constitutional and whether they are allowed to go through. Tripolitan War between America and African pirates. Victory in the war inspired Jefferson to secure a lot of naval ships to protect America against foreign war. He decided that a stronger navy was necessary for isolationism. So this is where they started to build up some sort of military in the early United States. Haitian revolution by slaves in Santo Domingo against French rule. When France lost power over the plantation island of Haiti, they no longer needed Louisiana to supply the island, so it encouraged the Louisiana Purchase. Basically, France didn't need that portion of the United States anymore when they lost Haiti. So this got the ball rolling for Napoleon to eventually sell that land to America. Corps of Discovery, explorers led by Lewis and Clark to traverse the Louisiana Purchase land. The explorers gathered information about the new land, created maps, and they learned a lot about the natives in the area and how to deal with them. Orders in Council, Britain and France closing each other's ports between them and America. America was caught between the issue of both European superpowers because they couldn't export goods to their biggest markets without creating a war. So basically, America was caught between the conflict of Britain and France, who really ruled Western Europe, and they didn't know what to do because, of course, Britain and France at this point are still much more powerful. Impressment, Britain's practice of pirating American shippers into slaves. American people were being stolen by British pirates, which angered and endangered the people. Chesapeake Affair, British ship fired upon an American ship in an attempt to capture them. American people were killed, which caused outrage across the country, and it could have been a viable pretext for war, but eventually this kind of calms down. But you still get the War of 1812. Embargo Act, government closed British and French ports from American ships. Jefferson hoped that it would cripple the French and British supplies, so they would have to avoid war, but it actually staggered their own economy, which influenced the Non-Intercourse Act. People thought Jefferson was being tyrannical. So basically they wanted to cut off the British and French from selling to hope to kind of take down their economies, but in reality the British and French didn't really need to sell in America to keep their funds. So this ended up just hurting America, and people got really mad at Jefferson, rightly so. The Non-Intercourse Act, half solution to the Embargo Act that reopened trade. In combination with the Embargo Act, it revived the manufacturing economy because shipping was no longer as profitable. James Madison, president who came after Jefferson. He was not a very effective president, who was affected by the political differences within his party and advisors. He had to clean up messes not created by him. So he was put in this really tough spot after Jefferson's pretty tumultuous presidency, so he didn't really get a lot done. Makin's Bill No. 2, bill that extended the Non-Intercourse Act, influenced either Britain or France to repeal their embargoes while America would open theirs in response, but also revealed America's dependence on their economic ties with the European powers. So basically, America would say that if Britain or France allowed them to sell, then they would allow Britain and France to sell in America. But this was kind of weird because Britain and France didn't really need America, while America needed them, so it just didn't really work a whole lot. Warhawks, new Congress faction that was pro-war against Britain. Warhawk aggression not only inspired a once again growing hatred against Britain, but also a vast Indian alliance in the West defending against American expansion. So these Warhawks were not just angry at Britain, but they were just overall very aggressive, and that included expanding into the western United States. Tecumseh, leader of Indian tribes. He inspired Indian unity against Americans and a culture against Americans, which made Warhawks even more angry. So on one side you have the Warhawks, which didn't like the American Indians, and then you have Tecumseh, who didn't like the Americans. So you could see how that would go. Battle of Tippecanoe, battle between Americans and the Indian tribes. The Americans won the battle decisively, which made the frontiersmen very happy. The American Indian Confederacy was destroyed. And that's a wrap. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next chapter, and goodbye.